I'm Dana, and today we have another video that's been massively inspired by the comments that happened in some of my other videos, because a bunch of people started talking about exposure therapy and how, like, if you want to do something when you're autistic, you have to just keep doing it and keep doing it until you're comfortable with it. And I have a lot of thoughts on both of those things and things in between that I really want to get into and share with you guys. However, as always, I'm not medically trained. I don't have any in-depth knowledge about any of these things. I might not even, I don't know anything, quite frankly. I'm speaking purely of my own experiences and my own thoughts and opinions and things that I think and things that I reckon. None of this is with any sort of like actual weight. None of this actually is like backed up by anything. It's very much like, here's some stuff from my brain. You can listen if you want. And as always, I do hope it will help people, but I'm never sure if it actually will, and I don't think that you should put too much weight into anything that I say because I don't know anything, okay? But getting into the video, one of the first types of therapy that I ever tried and like really put my all into and got to like referred to and like had to deal with essentially was the first time that I was in college. And it was one of those things where I'd started on CBT and they were like, this really isn't working, so we're going to just like force you to do the stuff that you're really massively struggling with. And I will give that they didn't know that I was autistic. I didn't know that I was autistic at the time. It wasn't something that I'd like really looked into or thought about at all. I didn't consider myself to like even possibly be autistic. Like, it was not a thought in my brain. I just knew that I felt like shit all the time and was constantly very anxious. It was at the point that I was trying to go to college and do college and get A-levels and have an education. So I was having to get up like 4 days a week, I think it was, and get the train from where I lived into Liverpool and walk to the college. And that was the first barrier for me. That was the first thing that I was really struggling with and that I brought up in therapy, because the way that the train worked is that I was coming from Birkenhead and going, like, Liverpool has like a circular line, so then it goes back to Birkenhead and goes to the end and then comes back, goes around, goes back. And all of the people on the platform and knowing that I needed to get off and go to college, which made me incredibly anxious, and just the whole overwhelm of the situation meant that sometimes I would get up at my stop and I would stand by the doors and everyone would have to walk past me to get off, and all these people would get on and I would just stand there and not be able to make myself move, and I wouldn't be able to get off the train, and I would do that loop sometimes for literally hours, like the entire day, and then get off when I would have gotten off the train at my stop to get home from college and just go home and be like, what the fuck? You know, like, I didn't understand why it was happening to me. I didn't know why I froze up like that. I just had this like complete decision paralysis where I couldn't even make myself get off the train. And the therapist that I had, her solution to that was get the train every single day, even the days that you're not in college, go and get on the train. And I started doing that, and it made it so much worse. It made it like, just the idea, the knowledge that I was going to be doing that every single day and not just the few days that I already massively struggled with it, made me feel sick 24/7. There was not a moment that I was not anxious about doing it. So on the days that I didn't have college, I'd get up and be like, I'm gonna go off and spend the day in Liverpool, and I'd get on the train and I'd stay on the fucking train. And sometimes I'd only do one loop and then I'd get off and go home, and sometimes I'd do like 7 loops, sometimes I'd be there all day. You know, the more that I did it and that I kept forcing myself to do it and being like, this is going to make me better, this is going to mean that I can actually do something, this is going to like turn me into a real fucking person, I kept doing it. And every time I spoke to this therapist, she was like, oh, well, it'll get easier the more you do it. But the more I did it, the harder it fucking got, and the dread that I felt for doing it and how silly I felt for not being able to do it all just continued to compound and make me feel so much worse, to the point that I got up one morning knowing that I was supposed to be in college, and I sat up in my bed. I remember like just looking around my room and being like, I'm not leaving this space. I can't leave this space. Like, it really, like, that was like I say, this was when I was like 16 going on 17. I just moved out with my ex at the time, and I spent the next probably like 6 to 10 months not leaving that flat without him. Like, I would leave the flat to go shopping with him, to buy food. I would occasionally leave it to like go for a walk in the park with him or whatever. I did not leave that flat alone on my own for like many months after that. I could not wrap my head around the idea of leaving my house after that experience and having to do that over and over again. You know, it's something that like I don't think about that very often anymore, because it was only like a 3-week period maybe. But I do think I probably would have been able to put up with college for a little bit longer if I hadn't had that exposure therapy and been forced to do something that I found incredibly draining and exhausting and emotionally like traumatizing, essentially, you know? I don't like throwing in that like everything that's ever happened to me that had a negative impact is some sort of trauma, but that definitely felt traumatic, you know? I had like nearly a year where I just did not leave my flat alone again, and I couldn't fathom the idea of getting onto any sort of public transport. And I will obviously give that. I don't think that was very good exposure therapy, frankly. Even if I wasn't autistic, obviously I didn't know at the time, but just for anybody that's experienced anxiety and dealing with things and not doing very well, I don't think that would be helpful, you know? Like, and I am saying that in the way of like, I don't think that the therapist that I had was doing it correctly. I do think that was like better ways of doing exposure therapy that I'm sure does work for lots and lots of people. But that type definitely did not work for me and made me much, much worse. And it's one of those things where I have literally never turned down any therapy that I've been referred to. That's why I've done CBT multiple times, even though even from the first time it was very apparent that it was not working for me. And it's one of those things where I think people think that I just like do it so that I can say that I have, but like I put my effort in, you know, like I am like, maybe this will fucking work. Am I expecting it to? Not really. Am I really fucking hoping that it will and giving it the absolute all so that I can be really shocked and surprised and be like, wow, I never thought in a million years this thing would work, but it did. Like, that's what I do, and it hasn't worked, you know? But that being said, I do recognise that like practice makes perfect as a term for a reason, you know, and doing things consistently and practicing them will make things easier. It will make you better at things. And there's some ways in which that I feel like I've managed to really do that well. Like, I have some friends now because I do feel like the constant friendships that I had that would break down or have various things go wrong, as horrible as they were to go through, and as much as a lot of them were quite frankly horrible people, I learned from them all, you know. It developed my personality, and I also learned from them and learned how I should behave with people and learned social rules and learned, like, you know, I'm never going to be like a social butterfly or be like the world's #1 socialist. That's not the term, is it? But like, you know, I'm never going to be amazing at socialising, but I have definitely learnt ways to get better and improve and be able to connect with people. And I do think it's very, very important, like, to put yourselves... I found it very important to put myself in situations socially that I felt uncomfortable with and that were challenging for me and that, you know, a lot of the time did go badly. I've had a lot of really negative social experiences, but I am also very aware that you can't just write off like an entire... See, that's the thing is with social stuff, it's like it's so individual, it's so different depending on who you're socializing with. So I've always been very like, I can't just write off and like never socialize with anyone again because these 12 people are assholes, you know. I do think that it's more difficult, at least for me, to do that when it's things that I know aren't going to change, you know? Like, I've felt the same level of anxiety getting onto like buses and trains and things like that my entire life. Like, I don't feel like practicing getting on a train or getting on a bus is going to help me because that's the thing I already have to do, you know? Like, if I'm going to go and see my friend, if I'm going to go and do something, I have to get a train or a bus. I have my script, I have myself sorted. I get on the bus and go, oh, I'll have a single please, I scan my card, and I hope there's a fucking queue so I can like scope it out and decide where I'm going to sit before I get to the front, and like I'm suddenly faced with all these people looking at me while I'm like, oh shit, where's the seat? And if that happens, I go upstairs because then I have the extra moments as I come up the stairs to like scope out. Like, I have the script for that, you know? I've done it enough and practiced it enough to be able to like know what I'm doing, I suppose. But that I still feel such a grip of fucking anxiety doing it, you know? And that's the bit that means that I still have times where if I'm already having a tough time in general, if I'm having a really difficult day, if something out of routine is happening, I already have so much extra anxiety that I probably won't be able to force myself to get onto a bus or a train when it's just more anxiety being shoved down my throat on top of already lots and lots of anxiety, you know? But it very much feels like everyone's expectations is like, because I can do it sometimes, I should be able to do it all the time, no matter what the situation, because you've practiced, you've managed it, you can do it. And it just doesn't work like that, you know? Like, it's whether it's that autism's like a variable disability, whether it's just that my anxiety's fucking weird outside of that, like whatever it is that's going on, practice often doesn't really feel like it actually helps me to be able to do the thing, you know? I might be able to present better at doing the thing and look like I'm doing it better to the people around me, but chances are I'm feeling the exact same level of anxiety, which means that although I might be able to do it on a low anxiety day, on a higher anxiety day, it's probably still not an option for me no matter how much I've practiced it. And that's where just doing things over and over and over again, although there's a degree to which I can sort of get used to it, it just doesn't work, you know? Like, every day of my life from the age of 5 to 16, I went to school, and every single night I would get home and I would just cry. Like, even if I hadn't had a terrible day, even if I hadn't been bullied that day, even if it had been like a good day in school, you know, I would get home and just be so overwhelmed from it all and so like broken down by it all and just constantly having to do shit every single fucking day. Like, it was all too much. I would just cry every single day afterwards. And being the type of kid that I was as well, I also had like weekend activities doing drama and music and blah blah blah. So I did not feel like I had a break for like my entire life up to 16. And then I had those 6 weeks between school and college where I was like, oh my god, life can be so much easier, life can be like this, you know. Like that summer we'd moved from Wales to Liverpool, and that summer like I was just in my room with my window open, this like lovely breeze coming over me, listening to David Bowie records that I bought from like a lovely local record shop because I lived in Liverpool and finally had a record store close by. Like it felt like the perfect little summer, you know. And then I went to college and everything was just so fucking difficult again, and I was like, it never ends. It truly never ends, you know? Like, you get out of school and everyone's like, things are different now. And then I went to college and it was exactly like school. And if it's the thing of like, if you just keep doing it, it gets easier. I should have been a fucking expert by that point. I should have been ready to get straight back into it because I'd been, for 11 years, that's what I'd done every single day of my life. And yet I could not get into the swing of college. I could not get used to the way that things were. I could not deal with the constant overwhelm of it all. But that being said, it is the type of thing where I think that it's important to find balance, you know? Like, as much as I'm not forcing myself to get up and go and do something every single day of my life, it is important to force myself to get up and do stuff sometimes, you know? It's important to find the like goals and ambitions that I have that don't involve having to do those things, you know? Working around what you can and can't do and accommodating to yourself. And it's the kind of thing that I think a lot of people see as some sort of like avoidance tactic, and you just can't be bothered, and you should just try and practice and then it'll get better and then you'll be fine. But when you try and put in all of this practice and it still doesn't get better, that's when I do think it's fair to avoid it and to work around it and to try and find ways that you can get to the same outcome without having to do the thing that's absolutely fucking destroying you, you know? And like I say, or at least like I hope I said, I do think that therapy is like such an individual thing, you know? Like, you've already got the therapist, the person that is conducting the therapy, who every single person is going to do it slightly differently. They're all trained in the exact same way, but everybody's different. They're all going to have their own way of doing things. And I do feel like a lot of the time the therapists that I've personally had have not done things in the best way for me, at least, you know? So there's that. And it's also just the thing of like, everybody's brains are working differently. We could have the exact same therapist do the exact same tactic and both respond in completely different ways. One of us could be really helped and one of us could not be helped at all. I'm not trying to use this video to say like exposure therapy does not work and this does not work and trying again is pointless. Like, that is not at all what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there's some things that I don't think trying again are helping for me. If you also feel like that, then that's awesome. I'm glad that I'm relatable to someone. If you don't, that's fine. We're all different people. But I think that there's areas of life, like I said, like with socialising, I've definitely learned how to socialise better by consistently putting myself into those really challenging and difficult situations that I haven't enjoyed and that I've wanted to escape from and just really had a bad time with. But it was vital to do that to get to where I am now, where I am able to like build communication, build friendships and build relationships and have an actual connection with people, and it's really nice. And I'm glad that I did that. But there's the other areas, like getting a train every single day of my life, that just made me more and more burned out and upset and anxious and just does not work. And I think it is very much figuring out what distress is like a valid reaction to the situation, you know? Like, I've had some really weird social situations and some really uncomfortable ones, and being kind of distressed and upset by them is completely understandable. Being distressed and upset by being on a train, less so. I probably should be able to just work around that and not have to force myself to keep doing it, you know? But I don't feel like I'm really making any new points here. I'm just sort of like rounding up the video, so I'm going to stop. I post videos like this one on Tuesdays, Thursdays and Sundays, so if you liked it you can subscribe to see lots more and maybe give this video a little like. That would be nice. I also have Instagram and TikTok where I post quite regularly if you'd like to go and follow me over on those places. My TikTok's quite similar to this sort of stuff, and then my Instagram is very just like my life. It's just like, here's a picture of me doing a thing. There's a picture of me with Jane Silent Bob on there. It's very cool. You should go and like it. But other than that, I also have Patreon and TikTok. So if you wanted to donate me a little bit of monetary value, you can. But there is no pressure. You don't have to. And I always feel really weird asking. So you don't have to. But it's very nice when people do choose to. It's kept me fed this month. So yeah, there's that. That's the video. That's the whole lot. Whoever you are and wherever you are, I hope you're having a lovely morning, evening, day, afternoon, week, month, year. And I will see you again in a couple of days.